Hey guys, it's Ellie here, welcome back. This is part 3 of the mini-series. Following on from the previous video, today I'm going to be exploring the concept of cultural differences. Cultural differences can be in all kinds of different things. It can be in food and drink, it can be in habits and behaviours and traditions, it can be in clothing, it can be in routines. There's lots of different things that kind of tie into communication and expectation as well. Today I'm just going to be diving into an example of what cultural differences look like for me and what they might look like for you. And of course I'll be addressing the reframing technique that you will have already heard about from the previous 2 videos. This technique again will help you look at things differently for yourself. And one thing I struggled with was the fact that French people are overall, not everybody, but overall very direct in their approach in terms of dialogue. They're very honest. They're very outward with their opinions, and sometimes it can come across as quite abrupt or confronting, and sometimes it's like you know that they don't mean any harm, but you can't help but feel like it's a personal attack. And my host parents I love them to bits, but there were times where I know that they didn't mean it like this, and I've had these conversations with them, but I think at the time I felt like them telling me to speak English in front of their friends, for example, when they heard me struggling with French, to them it was just their way of being nice and trying to make life easy for me, whereas for me, when I was trying hard, that felt like a personal attack, like, Ellie, shut up, you can't speak French. And again, that's my own insecurities playing records in my head. But at the time, and for you guys as au pairs at the moment, sometimes your host family, if you're in France, anywhere, I don't know, it can feel like sometimes your host parents might say something, or your host family's realm of people might say something to you that comes across as quite blunt, and it feels like a personal attack because that's not the way you would express it where you're from. You know, English people naturally tend to fluff over things and be really, really nice to the point of annoyance because they just don't say things like they are. And then you get French people and it's the opposite end of the spectrum. So it was like a massive culture shock for me. And I have no doubt there are things you've probably discovered in your host family's life that's quite contrasting to the way you do things. With the whole French people being quite direct, I think, you know, a great way to reframe that at the time is actually consciously thinking to myself, okay, well, my host dad wasn't intending to make me feel this big. He wasn't intending to make me feel like I was incapable of speaking French. He was just really confident in the fact that he wanted to make his au pair feel comfortable and not have to struggle, so he was helping me understand that it was okay to just speak English. So of course at the time I wasn't going to think that, but looking back, if I had reframed it, thought about myself less as a victim and more of, okay, his personality is quite passionate and outward, and he's French, but he's very international, and he's got 3 languages and his friends speak English, you know, if I'd have thought about it that way, I wouldn't have felt half as bad as I did. Other examples could be etiquette when you walk into the house. You know, do you normally take your shoes off and your hat and your scarf and your jacket before you get in the house? Or are you allowed to walk in with shoes on? Like, all these tiny little cultural norms, like what time you eat dinner. If you don't allow yourself to see them as an opportunity to really just look at the way you live and why you live the way you do and where you come from, and the habits and feelings and thoughts you have towards yourself, then you're kind of missing out quite a lot. And for me, you know, those feelings that I had towards my host dad, those times where I felt like I was doubting my French, they built up in me over time, you know, and they made me make judgments that were unnecessary. And I imagine it felt the same way the other way at times when I had my own way of doing things as an English person and not being direct enough, or not just making instant decisions. If I'd have reframed it and thought, okay, Ellie, get out of your victim pants and just have a look at the world around you for a minute and see that they just do things differently, and the minute I understand that I do things differently too, everything's easier to navigate because you can start to question positively about why you're here and what you're here to learn. So just to recap, the 3 major kind of umbrellas that I just mentioned were communication, expectations, and cultural differences. They are very broad subjects, and there are so many things that go underneath them that I could make 6 million videos about these things. But at the same time, I think the more we overcomplicate things, the harder it is to really get to the source. And in my opinion, just from looking back, having written my own story, The Big Sister Project, about my au pair experience, it is all about reframing stuff. Because yes, there are going to be things that are going to be harder to solve, and there are going to be communication errors that will require help from other people sometimes. You might feel like you're really stuck, and there are different ways and different people you can go to if things get to that point. But overall, the encouragement that I really want to share as a past au pair and someone that is passionate about making sure that we feel empowered by our decisions to do things and get the most out of the experiences, whether they're good or challenging. Call them challenging, not bad. It's just reframe it. Have a look at it differently before you jump to the conclusion of a story that is going to make you feel really bad or make you want to quit. Think about yourself as a character on a journey in a story, and maybe you're coming across some people that are a little bit like the antagonists, the bad guys, and actually they've got their own backstory as well. And the minute you start to look at any miscommunication errors, any expectation misalignment, any cultural differences that are kind of rubbing up against each other in a really bad way or starting to make you feel that way, think about the backstory first and what might be coming to light. Really, every big picture is made up of small pieces, and if you can start to just think about them as a smaller thing, like what do I need to solve in myself first? Where might I be going wrong? Where am I lacking confidence? If you look at those things first and do all the work on yourself before you allow it to escalate, you'll start to bring it down slowly, and you may find it's so much easier to actually navigate those problems, and they'll become half as bad as they seem to be at the beginning. And of course, it's not always the same for everything, but this is just a recommendation for you guys, and I would love to discuss it further with you. If you have any questions about reframing the concept of story and having a look at yourself as a character and the author of your life, that's kind of my core message, and the work I do with young people in that au pair age bracket now and beyond. But in the meantime, I hope that was valuable, and do look after yourself as an au pair, and remember that everything is a learning experience. Feel free to get in touch though, guys. You can find me at the Big Sister Project _ on Instagram and Facebook. If you want to join the Waymakers Tribe on Facebook, feel free to do that as well. Take care, guys. See you soon.